Welcome, dirty peasants, to episode 31 of the Wartwood Gazette, the Amphibia podcast. This week we'll be covering Amphibia Season 3, Episode 7, Spider-Sprig and Olivia and Yunan. I'm your host, the Maticon, and joining me today, we have Pixels,
Ahoy!
King of the Uzbeks,
Hey.
and Nick.
What's up, guys?
Alright, thanks guys for coming on. We've got two very special episodes this week. News, I think we don't have any news. We can just go right into the episode unless there's anything I missed. Alright, then I guess we'll go right into Spider-Sprig. Let me pull up the credits for this episode. So Spider-Sprig was directed by Joe Johnson, written by Gloria Shen, storyboards by Alex Swanson, Silver Paul, Kyler Spears, and Rachel Pack. So the episode starts off with the planners and Mr. Boon Choi watching a movie called it's Tarantulad. I forgot the rest of the title. So it's basically this superhero fighting this puffer fish villain. We get a lot of tropes about how he'll never be loved if they found out who he really was, whatever. Tarantulad defeats the villain. His mask comes off. He's revealed to be some kind of I don't want to say tarantula, because I know he has mandibles on top, but whatever. And then you have like the one child character who tells him that he's a hero. Everyone applauds, and then you get this kind of like Superman-esque shot of like Tarantulad's parents while he narrates how he's finally found a home for himself. So Sprig and Mr. Boon Choi, they're moved by this film. The rest of the planners and Anne are not, and seem slightly concerned for them. Sprig kind of wishes he could go out and be accepted by humanity, but of course they have to be in hiding. They have to keep a low profile, as Anne states. Sprig kind of points out how like Anne didn't have to hide in Amphibia, like she was allowed to like roam about, but unfortunately it's not the case here. Polly takes a moment to criticize the plot details of the movie they just watched. Hop Hop is slightly concerned about her internet usage, and then while Polly's talking, like we see Sprig beginning his superhero monologue. We get a little bit. He seems to start like training a little bit, where he like starts climbing the walls and swings around with his tongue, and then he starts to come up with his superhero identity and creating a costume, and then eventually he dubs himself a frogman. So he has like the costume, and then Polly just walks in on the middle of him doing some posing, and then just jumps out of the window to prepare for some crime fighting. So we get Sprig surveying the city. He notices something happening at a lemonade stand, where this guy's basically like writing up a report for these kids with a lemonade stand. So Sprig makes his debut, but it's not really like a crime or injustice. It's just basically the neighborhood watch, Robert Otto. It's just him like writing up these kids, and both the kids are not impressed by both him or Sprig. And then Sprig and Robert Otto Robert Otto's not very happy about a vigilante in his territory, but then they're interrupted by a runaway bus. So Otto goes after it, but him telling the bus to stop despite the brakes not working, of course, doesn't really help. And then Frogman comes to the rescue with his tongue to cushion the blow of the bus. We find out that like one of the kids on the bus is Molly Jo, which is Otto's granddaughter. She meets Sprig for the first time. Everyone's cheering for Frogman while Otto is unhappy about this. We get a montage of Sprig's popularity or his status as a superhero becoming more well known throughout what I'm assuming is at least a day or two, or even maybe just the day of. So then eventually we cut back to Otto in the junkyard, and he's very he's looking at his phone and seeing all the memes and and the news about Sprig, about Frogman, about Frogman's success. He's enraged by this. He wants to prove that Frogman's just a joke, and then that's when he comes across Cloakbot's arm, which was torn off by Anne back in Anne's Terminator. He's able to put it on and decides to put it to some use. So it cuts back. What I'm assuming is the next day, Sprig is being adored by the fans. The popularity is kind of getting to his, like, he's got a little bit of an ego about it. Then when Discount Mario offers him some free pizza, that's when Otto makes his dramatic entrance, and he grabs like the pizza and just like tosses it out and starts picking a fight with Sprig. We get this like very action-packed like chase scene, goes through the streets, goes up buildings. We get that iconic trailer shot, which they immediately both like start like holding their leg in pain after doing that that kick with the. So then eventually they keep fighting. Molly Jo is eventually like caught in the crossfire. She's about to get hit by by a light post. Eventually Frogman saves him, but Molly Jo points out she's not impressed with Spider-Sprig. She's looking at all the damage and saying that they're just a bunch of attention seekers. So eventually Sprig kind of realizes what he's done, that like maybe the superhero business wasn't all it's cracked out to be. But then eventually Otto decides to help. Him and Sprig end up on good terms, and they decide to help each other. They decide to help rebuild the street or the area they damaged. And then so Molly Jo and Frogman or Sprig are all good. Frogman hops out or swings into the sunset, and some police officer comments on Otto definitely getting arrested. We cut back to the planter home. Sprig tries stinking his way in, but Anne is there waiting for him and kind of lectures him about keeping a low profile, but Sprig is already done with the Frogman persona and is retiring it. And then Anne kind of like gets less upset with him because it seems like he's been through a rough day. But then the segment ends with Sprig telling Anne that he used her clothes and cut them up to make his costume to Anne's anger. And Anne pretty much probably gives him an earful after that. So that was Spider-Sprig, and this was like a super fun episode. You could tell how much the crew loved doing this. Like there were 4 storyboard artists on this one. Like I don't want to say it's like a time constraint. Maybe they just all wanted to have fun boarding Sprig and his shenanigans this episode, especially. Really liked not Dr. Octopus. What was I gonna say? What's his name? Robert. I liked Robert.
It was Robert
Otto.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like he was voiced by
I think Brad
comedian.
Garrett.
I forgot his name.
I thought
Comedian.
it was like Brad Garrett, I think.
He was in Everyone Loves Raymond, I believe.
Brad Garrett. Yeah.
Yes.
And now that I think about it, like the character model looks like a lot like him, which should have been like a sign, especially with his height.
Wait, now I gotta look that up. Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, you weren't kidding. Wow.
Yes, this was a very Sprig. Like Sprig was in most of this segment outside of maybe like the first like 1 or 2 minutes with the planners. It was very like Sprig heavy episode, and I still enjoy all like all the superhero gags we got, like, and especially that pigeon joke with like Sprig on like what's assumed to be like a statue with just a bunch of pigeons like stacked together.
For a second when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, isn't that where Cloakbot was at? Like he was camping?" But then when we got a better angle with the pigeons, I was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, I was thinking it was like a dark. Yeah, I thought it was like a Dark Knight reference or something. But like this,
Right.
like you could just tell, like every little thing in this episode was just like a labor of love. Like I just passion spewing out of it. And I loved every single second of it. It was like everything I wanted from a Spider-Man parody and more. Like I'm calling. I mean, right now, this is my favorite solo Sprig episode, hands down. Like, I tried to look back at all the episodes that came before, and like, I can't. This one tops it all right here for me. Like, I'm calling it right now. I don't think there's going to be any future episode that ever tops this one for me. Maybe it'll be a number 2. I mean, of course, it's going to be a number 2, but like, right now, this one's number 1 in my heart.
Any other thoughts on the segment, Nick?
Oh, oh, yeah, that's a good question. God, just like everything was just fantastic. Like I don't even know what to put out there right now, honestly. Like I love the characterization of Sprig here, his development. Like Robert Otto's setup as a villain. Like they had some really strong parallels between them. Like so don't even get me started on the music. Like I think you told me it was like Electro Beat or something. Like I really hope they release that because Bryce, it was amazing. It went so well with the scenes, especially during the action scenes. Like when Sprig and Otto were running around the city fighting, like it was just perfection right there. Especially when they ran up the building and tried to kick each other. Like that was just all great. And then just, I really felt. I know people always complain about how Sprig, he's kind of a little shit sometimes. But I feel like this is really the episode that sort of clinches in him moving away from that persona because I feel like here. What I noticed is that this was like a lot less. Even so, this episode definitely did have its own, jokes and humor, right? I felt like this episode was a lot less comedic compared to Sprig's usual little shit episodes. Because when he's like, this wasn't even really Sprig scheming at all, right? Like, there's no Grinch face here. Instead, Sprig's like, wow, there's this whole wide world out here that I need to explore. I want to be like Anne back in Amphibia, I just want to be out there. And of course, there's the usual, I want people to notice me. Okay. Like, that happened. And then now I'm going to fast forward towards the end. And I've been going on for a while, but I'm going to finish it right here. But, like, usually the ending to his episodes are just Sprig kind of joking about how he didn't learn his lesson. But here he sort of did, and it was all in his... Well, he got swallowed by Molly Joe, but, like, you guys know what I mean here? Like, Sprig... There was no last-minute humor of Sprig just saying, oh, psych, I learned nothing today. No. Instead, Sprig, he actually took in that lesson and showed that he was actually remorseful about it. Of course, it was like the last-minute gag of Anne, but like, I don't know. I feel like everything just really came together here, and I love this episode.
All right, thank you, Nick. Pixels, what were your thoughts on this segment?
It was a really fantastic episode. They had a lot of references besides Spider-Man. Like I said before, Tarantula is based off of Kamen Ichigo, which is the first ever Kamen Rider to ever debut in his franchise, dating back to 1971. Just a little fact for y'all. But there was so... it's just because Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes growing up. It's like, I already love this episode a lot. The music made it fun. And the pacing was so... I like the pacing of this episode, too. The pacing was great. The characters are great. Molly Jo was a parody of Mary Jane, but she looked like Gwen Stacy. So...
Yeah, that confused me for a second.
I didn't mind it, though. I didn't mind it.
Yeah. I feel like she was like a cross between both of them or something. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Let me keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, but what you said, Nick, the music really fit. The music really helped. I really love the ending scenes too of both of them climbing up the building, and I just thought that was really great. I could go so on, but this is a really top tier episode in all of Amphibia we watched. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Pixels. Yeah, like a lot of these shots were like really like solid. Like, I think I'm checking the timing of when all the action started to like ramp up. It was the last four the last 4 minutes of this episode were like basically just a long chase scene. And yeah, especially the shot of them like going up the building. It was just a really nice use of like Otto used not Frobot, Cloakbot's like a arm very well, like in all these scenes. Maybe a little bit better than Cloakbot himself. It's just the
Yeah,
way.
he didn't question it.
He would have made a better overarching villain than the Cloakbot.
Yeah, and Spring didn't even question. He should have noticed the arm right away because he kind of just he faced Cloakbot the previous episode. So
I guess
you know what I
Uzbeks,
mean?
Uzbeks, what were your thoughts on this segment?
All right, I really liked it. Like the animation and humor, that was all very on. It was a fun send up of superhero, the superhero genre just in general, from the villain suddenly getting new technology and yelling to the hero and the girl who has to leave. I thought the moral was good, but a little mishandled because Sprig did no collateral damage until he got attacked. Like, this is all Otto's fault. Sprig really didn't cause any damage. And so it's a little hard to, like, buy him being in the wrong, even if it is a good message. I think they could have shown him being a little more destructive doing it.
Right.
But I did like...
Oh, go ahead, Uzbek, sorry.
I did like how it paralleled Sprig's growth, like his desire to be loved, his desire for attention, his impulsiveness. And how that contrasts, like, his desire to be recognized and acclaimed as a superhero, running into the sort of the altruism and no, I don't need any reward that, like, superheroes are supposed to have. So, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really funny. I liked Polly, Mr. Boonchoy, and Anne's little cameos, even if they weren't there that much. The animation was great. There were like 4 storyboarders for this, which is more than most for an 11-minute segment, at least in Amphibia. But it really showed in the quality and just the framing. It's great. Like you said, the building scene, the scene where he starts climbing, the bus stopping scene. There was just a lot of great stuff in this episode from a visual perspective.
All right, thank you, Uzbeks. And yeah, like I kind of thought about it a little bit too, where how like Otto caused most of the damage, and I think if the show at least addressed that Sprig wasn't really focused on stopping Otto and more just like hopping around the city, he didn't really make an effort to confront Otto. I think that would have enhanced the episode a little bit more. Because it's just like a chase. Like Sprig doesn't really like fight back. He just keeps outrunning him.
I do kind of wish they had Mr. X in it, like in a minor role. Like, you know how there's like always a cop who's standing there uselessly when there's a superhero fight or something. Like, he could have just, been there.
Actually, that's not even a bad point because, like, where has Mr. X been for like the past,
Yeah,
the past
Mr.
several
X should be like
episodes?
watching, like, the minute a superhero called Frogman shows up, Mr. X should be like, wait, what? That's me.
It's like, Jenny, get the stun gun.
Maybe it's because he screwed up that one time, because he brought in a whole like SWAT team, right? And then he ended up ended up like basically nothing happening with that. So I'm thinking like maybe they're being a little hesitant on how they help out Mr. X with his cases.
Yeah, but then he would have just gone solo and tried to do it himself. But anyway.
That's true.
Yeah,
Oh,
Man
go
of
ahead.
the Wheel Table is the moral stuff. That's just like something that would have been cool, but it doesn't detract from the episode.
Oh, like Mr. X thinks it's just like he looks out and just sees a superhero fight. He's like, nah, not my problem.
That could have been funny as well.
I also like the minor detail of how of Otto and Molly Joe, they have like similar color schemes.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, wait, Otto and Molly Joe? Let me check. Really?
Yeah, they have they have similar colors. Like It's just like
okay, yeah.
yeah, it's just a nice minor color. Like
Oh, I see
like,
it. Yeah, I see it. You know, this is pretty rad. That's what I really like about this episode. Like, it's just meant to be a Spider-Man parody, but then they went much harder than they actually needed to, and I love them for that. Like, this is, I don't know. This is absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
oh, and what's the when Sprig's like stuck to Molly Joe, is that supposed to be like a reference to Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like,
That's what I was
whole
thinking.
awkward handshake.
Spider-Man inadvertently getting stuck to his love interest is a reoccurring thing in various Spider-Man properties.
Oh, did that happen in the Raimi films?
Him getting unintentionally stuck to stuff. I forget if it happened with Mary Jane in particular.
I don't know why, but my brain's telling me, like, yes, like, maybe I can't fully remember, but maybe. But, I mean, you are right, that is a common thing. I mean, I guess maybe the Raimi films didn't do it, but, like, I think you're right about it being a common thing here.
Because I think just because it's Molly Joe looks like Gwen Stacy, like Spider-Verse is like the first thing I'll think of.
And I'm gonna guess being an animated film, that's the first one the crew thought of as well, at least for this context.
Oh, and the way Polly was talking about the film, she kind of reminded me of Duckweed.
Yeah.
The critic back in Amphibia, like
the way she said, like, you can't solve systemic problems in like a costume and by punching it, and
by wearing a sock on your head.
Yeah, and then in the next episode, they literally create a villain who is like the systemic issues. We'll talk about that later, obviously.
Yes. I don't even know. Like, the internet has not been doing Polly well. Like, I feel like she's become much more critical and cynical than she was before. Like, it's really bringing back the whole straight man vibe she had back then. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of what she did here. Oh, yeah, that's true. I feel like there's a lot more cynicism to it now. Like Polly's just like she was just, I don't know, saying things I never would have thought she'd say before.
Yeah, because before Polly, like, I guess Polly's worldview was like a lot more simple. So just it was just simple but effective insults. But then now here she's like, she's on the internet now, so she's looking at like, she's expanding her vocabulary, I guess.
Yeah. Man, when she just like criticized the hell out of that movie right in front of them when they're in tears, I was like, Polly, like, come on. I don't even know. I think, like, what did Hop Pop say? Like, didn't he say, like, we should keep you away from the internet or something?
We should cut back on your internet use.
Yeah, please do that. Like, I am not comfortable with an overly critical Polly.
What's the name of the comic book dots? I'm looking it up right now.
Kirby dots.
Which one?
Kirby dots?
Oh, are they called Kirby dots? Okay, yeah, because I liked that effect in
What are you guys looking for?
Oh wait, I think maybe that's the Kirby Crackle. Oh, never mind. That's just black space. Oh yeah, maybe it's Kirby dots. Actually, no. Kirby dots apparently is referring to field of black to represent negative space around explosion, smoke, blast from ray guns, cosmic energy. Okay, maybe it might be Kirby dots. I know there's something else called like Bay. Something else dots. I don't know. Maybe that's the one. Oh, Ben-Day dots. Yeah, that's the. Yeah, Ben-Day dots. That's what I was thinking about. Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, I like that use, like the use of that in some of those frames. Let's see. We covered the costume. Oh yeah, just the costume in general was a pretty like nice.
Reminds me of Spider-Man 1 when with Peter Parker in the steel cage in a way.
Yeah.
In a bit.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the sort of prototype costume before they really
Yeah.
get to their final version of it. But I still thought it was kind of cool actually.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
though it was dumb, I was like, all right, this is actually pretty neat.
And then Robert Otto, he changed up his costume to look like they definitely were going for Doc Ock look with like the trench coat, and then
Yeah. Then in fact, his last name's Otto. Like they were not like even trying to hide that away from us.
They were not being subtle with this one.
Yeah.
They did not care. They went with it. So you know what? We ain't gonna get sued. We just say Robert Otto makes sense. Even this episode dodged so many bullets because of copyright. Like,
well now
they don't actually
Disney
need to worry about
oh
copyright.
right, Disney
Um,
and Marvel.
Yes.
yeah Disney owns all of Spider-Man's rights with the exception of movie rights.
Yes.
Also,
So-
this is a very ironic episode. Very.
Yeah, but at the same time, Disney higher ups are not going to like let them run amok with the Spider-Man property. So
Yeah.
And then I just wish they got Alfred Molina to
Yeah.
voice this guy because like
I was really praying. I was like,
or really any
had my
Spider-Man
fingers crossed for
actor.
that. Yeah.
yeah, like because they got it for the multi-bear back in like Gravity Falls, but maybe he wouldn't want to like do the exact same role again. I don't know. Or maybe it just could never happen. But still, Brad Garrett was
Yeah.
Brad Garrett's voice is very like it's like the perfect amount of like ham and threatening aura. I don't know how to describe it. Like
Yeah. See, I really feel like because I know what you're saying. Because I really felt like this episode captured like the feeling of the Raimi films, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of serious and also campy at the same time. Like especially with some of the lines here, where you can tell where it's like it's silly, but these characters are taken very seriously. Like, one of my favorite lines here is just when Robert Otto just tells Sprig, "This is no longer a popularity contest. This is a battle for the soul of a city." I was like, damn, man, okay. Like, it's just great, you know? Like, I really feel the love they have for Spider-Man here. And it's not even just Spider-Man, but heroes in general. Like, you could just... Sure, they're like, they're obviously trying to call them out through Polly, but at the same time, though, they just know the sort of fun and excitement that comes with it. And that's especially during the fight scenes, I feel like. When they take the frame of the shots and they play around with them like that, God, it makes for such a gorgeous scene.
and then yeah, especially the chase where like it's just like nonstop, and like I like how it was probably I like how they use roller skates for Otto's like design, because like they knew later on like they would need a way for him to like keep up with Sprig. I just like rollerblades. It was such like a weird, but like it was a weird like decision, but like it makes perfect sense in the context of this episode.
Really, it's just like everything is just like it's just right. Like I have zero. I mean, I understand I understand some of you guys' problems with this episode, but for me, I'm just like I don't know, I'm just zeroed out on all that, you know, like I just really enjoyed this episode. I have like nothing else, like nothing, like no other thing I could have like wished for more. Like I feel like it's not just a great parody on superheroes in general, but also just a great way to sort of push Sprig forward as a person, you know, because I think I know we can't exactly say it yet, but I do feel like here Spriggs, he's really moving out of that. You know, he's really moving out of that point where he just craves attention and affection from so many people.
Exactly, yeah, and I just wish like they addressed a little bit how like Uzbeks mentioned that it was Otto who caused most of the damage, but like maybe they could have like done something where it would justify Sprig like realizing that like he was like the main source of the conflict, or the main source, not main source, but one of the leading factors that caused all this damage. But like I still think it was like it was a really great episode.
It was really good, and there were some great parallels to Marcy in this.
Which yeah.
And I'm not sure how much we want to talk about how these two episodes relate to one another, because there are a few things I'd like to discuss. Do we want to do that now, or should we move on to Yunan and Olivia? Or Olivia and Yunan?
I think we could kind of touch on... We're not going to touch on the next segment, but I guess you can talk about in general how Tarantulad is a lot like... It's a lot of what Marcy wanted and got to do in Utopia for a good while.
Yes. And the similarities in appearance. And I'm also just going to say, like, the scene at the end where Ant, like, you risk all of us so you could play dress up. That is very, to me at least, similar to what happened with Marcy.
For sure.
Fantasy using fiction as a prop to make yourself, you know, fit in a new world. This disregard for the feelings and advice of others in favor of your sort of fantasy before finally being called out. This desire to be like beloved, which Marcy has. So yeah, there's a lot of parallel between what Marcy did in Utopia and in season 2 to like this episode.
And in the case of this episode, at least Sprig was called out for it very early on. But like in Marcy's case, she was in an environment that was basically designed to not touch on those issues, with like a figure that was like that actively set out not to improve Marcy in a substantial way, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, Sprig had actual people like looking out for him, and like those who weren't afraid to call him out, even so like they're his biggest fans, like Molly Joe. Yeah, I mean, no, those parallels are definitely there. Wait, did we mention how Sprig parallels Robert Otto? Like, did we mention that at all?
Yeah,
you brought up a little bit in your initial thoughts, but yeah, if you want, you can expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's pretty neat because I know back in what was it, Tide Feud, we got like the parallel between like Sprig and Ned, where they're like just trying to force relationship onto Mrs. Bingeworth that she obviously wasn't okay with, you know, really overstepping their boundaries as people. And then, you know, fast forward to here, we have Robert Otto. It's sort of the same, like you said, he was like in the neighborhood watch, right? It's sort of like an unofficial position, right? Where he wants all the affection and glory that comes with being a hero, but like he's lost sight of the original meaning of a hero, and really just puts himself or other people in danger. Like that's that's basically what Sprig got up to here. And like, I guess I just really like that. I think. I mean, I didn't honestly. I did not expect myself to end up loving Robert Otto as much as I did, but like, I think it's just like, I think it's the parallel between him and Sprig, and really just the campiness and just all the action that surrounded him. Like I think he ended up being one of my favorite Earth characters there.
Yeah, he's definitely like top 3 for me. Actually, maybe top 2. Like I think I like Mr. X, but I like Otto a little bit more.
I think I might just say he's my number. No, I'm giving. No, I'm gonna say it. I think he's my number 1 right now because I'm trying to think like what other Earth characters have we met and like.
Oh, Dr. Jan! Shit.
I know
okay,
Dr.
Dr. Jan's
like,
number
Dr.
1,
Jan
and then
the Boonchoy parents. So
well, okay, well that's I feel like the Boonchoy parents are cheating. I feel like those 2 are cheating. Yeah, those 2 are like. Okay, let's say let's just say non-Boonchoy parents then. Like non-Boonchoy Earth characters. I'm gonna put Robert Otto as my number 1 just because he's part of what made Spider-Sprig my favorite Sprig episode. It's an all-around fantastic villain. Like I just like it really just writes for itself if you get what I mean. Like just think about it here. Like he's an aging grandfather, right? Like his granddaughter doesn't give him the respect he deserves. The neighborhood doesn't give him the respect he deserves. Like no one does. And here comes this young new vigilante who doesn't follow any rules, like uprooting him from any respect he ever could have gotten. It's all right there, and I love it. It really does feel like something I could just read from a comic. Like there's actual thinking here that goes into the writing.
I'm surprised he would just throw himself. I'm surprised he's lived this long, especially in this episode where he just went right in front of the runaway bus. he got hit by it and still like walked away from that.
Yeah, holy shit. He's like, hey, I slowed it down. Like, I don't even know. It's cartoon physics right there. And I bet he's like probably close to 72 or something. Like, yeah, I don't know, 70. Yeah, I don't even know. That whole scene was just hilarious. No, actually, no, we got mentioned though. Like, I feel like Sprig has had like a power creep since season 1. He managed to stop an entire bus with his tongue. Like, can you imagine him doing that back in season 1? Hell no.
he'd wonder what a bus is. But yeah, he's
okay, that's
gained
true.
experience.
Yeah, and I like how like last week kind of teased that his powers were getting stronger when he like navigated the balloon.
Oh yeah, like Christ, like he's never stretched his tongue out that long, but hell, he was doing it. I don't know. You said like it was what do you say? You said it was helping out in Spider-Sprig. I guess it sort of did here.
Like if this happened in season 1, I'd be thinking like, oh man, like Sprig can do all that with his tongue, but like
yeah, now it feels more natural, you know, because we just seen him go through like multiple fights. So at this point, it's like okay, yeah, you know that makes sense. Obviously, like a power creep was going to happen here.
yeah, so like all the planners are leveling up. Like you got Sprig who's just tongue powers and webbed feet. You have Polly who's got legs, and then Hop Hop's already a tank, so he's just
yeah. Wait, I just realized is the whole climbing onto walls? That's not just Sprig specific, is it? Have we seen anyone else do it?
Actually, I haven't seen Hop Hop did it back in taking charge.
I've seen Yunan do it.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I know like the newts, but I'm just thinking like any other frogs. I guess Hop Hop did it.
I think that was the only time we saw him do it was when he was trying to avoid getting caught on Suspicion Island.
Jeez. Yeah, but that's just pretty rad, you know. Like it's just pretty nice that like our sort of like pre-season 3 discussions became true here, right? Like everyone's really just branching out and just sort of developing a part of themselves they couldn't handle Amphibia, right? Like Polly has gotten to just show off how intelligent she is. I mean, Hop Hop, we can guess what he's doing, right? Like he's fulfilling a dream that he didn't really get to tackle back in Amphibia. Sprig, I guess he's finding out what it's like to have a full family, and I know we still don't fully know yet because we don't know the future. But I just really feel like this might just be the last. Like this might just be the last episode that's just driven by Sprig's desire to be loved. So I think like I don't know. I think Sprig's really getting there too.
I think this might be like Sprig's last solo episode.
No.
He might
No way.
Well,
maybe his last solo episode. He might get like a pair-up episode with Anne or something.
Yeah, he'll have a pair episode, but like this was very
but this
very
is
Sprig
probably the last
solo.
Yeah.
And yeah, our friend Advent like brought up how like each planner is getting an episode where they let themselves like have their impulses take over them before like everything was crashing down. So like in case of Polly, we had fixing Frobo, and then Sprig has Spider-Sprig, and then probably Hollywood Hop Hop is going to be Hop Hop's claim to fame. Temporarily, I guess. I don't know, but
he's gonna. Don't forget, he's gonna get bombed at.
He's gonna get bombed out.
Yeah, that golf cart scene. I'm looking forward to it. He just seems like he's having a good time, and like a bomb goes off. He's like, "What?" That's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's nice to have the planners get their time on Earth. But I think I'm going through the episode again, and I think we've covered everything. Oh, just a quick thing. This is the second time Polly has gotten. The second time someone spit their drink out at Polly. I think Hop Hop did it in Adventures in Cat Sitting, and then Anne does it again here when she's browsing the news.
Oh, she did? Wow.
Yeah. So bad for her. Still funny. I love a good old spit take.
Yeah, I know Amphibia is sort of like, it's not always consistent with its gags, right? Like, I know like that they did the whole, not the baby thing in the Utopia arc, but only happened like twice, right? Like Marcy at the Gates and Hopping Mall thing. And then we have the whole bullying Mr. Boonchoy, like, I don't know, I feel like, yeah.
There was no Boonchoy bullying this episode.
Yeah, this is the first time we've got that.
Yeah, there was no bullying here. I mean, I guess there was Polly criticizing his favorite movie right in front. Like, it's funny. Like, he was crying right there, being all emotional about it, and then Polly's just like, "Nah, this movie's garbage. Sorry." I just thought that was so mean.
At least they didn't show him suffering, and just
yeah. Yeah, that was nice at least. Jeez, I don't know. But the internet is, I don't know. It's. Thankfully, it brought Polly to the IT gals, but like, jeez, you know, it's they're so critical of everything.
Oh, I found like I'm reading whatever Otto was reading about like the news for Frogman. There's an article like it's the description or the article is pretty funny where it's talking about how Los Angeles is a gog man for Frogman, and who could blame anyone for loving this little weirdo? He's pink as a pig, built like an 8-year-old, has a tongue that makes us sick, and yet his amphibious dynamo has captured the hearts of every... I'm guessing this is lingo for Los Angeles citizens, Angelino?
Yeah,
and his slimy charms.
Like, it's just, I just feel like that's like comic book inspired right there. Like, I just love it. Everything about this episode.
Yeah, like, and he's looking at like a post from like Mary Jo, like of her like posting Frogman pics.
Oh,
his feed.
He was freaking out about that. Like,
oh yeah, and then,
I just thought his eyes just sticking out of his head, looking
the blood red.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
And then the meme screenshot of like the red dress girl.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Like that just broke him. Yeah, I already mentioned Discount Mario.
Yep.
Okay, I think it's time to go on to Olivia and Yunan.
The meat and potatoes. Am I right? Let's get into it.
Yep.
Yeah, so we got Olivia and Yunan, directed by Jen Strickland,
Hey.
written by Geneva Mai, and storyboards by Eddie West and Drew Applegate. So the episode starts off with a flashback of Marcy's time. Marcy's time in Amphibia very early on. She's still in the cast when she fell down that flight of stairs. Olivia explains that she comes from a line. Her family has sworn an oath to protect, I guess, the surrounding nature, the nature that's surrounding Newtopia, and how she has like a duty to protect this. And Marcy makes that same like promise to Olivia as well. And then we have that shot of like the landscape that immediately changes to present day. We see it getting ripped apart by Andrews's robot army production war machine. Everything's getting ripped apart. The castle, even the castle itself, is like falling. It's like I don't want to say eroding. That happens over like millions of years, but it's like falling apart now. That's probably getting stripped for materials as well. And then like Olivia is like sadly looking out of the balcony until she's summoned by a robot. Summons her. A robot mentions that she's being summoned by Andreas, so she meets up with Yunan. And they mention how this is like the first time in a few weeks that he's actually like called for them after the events of True Colors. So like they peek in and they notice that Andreas is talking to himself. We'll later learn who he's actually talking to. He's talking about testing out some kind of device. It's not ready yet, but they're going to still proceed as planned. Then at that point, Andreas properly welcomes, if it's probably the wrong word for this, welcomes them in. He mentions that they're getting promoted, where Olivia has to oversee the refineries, and Yunan has to basically like round up a bunch of frogs, or just a bunch of villagers, and just make them work in the factory. And yeah, we still get that same Andreas jolly psychopath nature about how like if anyone like refuses his orders to like terminate them. And then Olivia, once they leave the room, Olivia's like raging about everything that's going on before Yunan rightfully like takes her aside and tells her to like speak privately if she's like gonna talk about treason. So yeah, Yunan agrees that like King Andreas has lost his mind. They gotta figure out a way to stop him. And then Olivia points out that maybe they should rescue Marcy, since she's been the only one who's been able to beat Andreas at Flipboard. That she's probably smart enough to help figure out a way to, I guess, stop all of this. And like we get briefly, Yunan throwing shade at the girls for being backstabbers, as we saw in True Colors, but Olivia insists they can trust Marcy. So they decide to rescue Marcy. They have to pass a bunch of robot guards, and Olivia pulls off her like normal climbing tricks and gets them over that first hallway. Eventually they enter Marcy's room and they go through the trapdoor we saw in Sleepover to End All Sleepovers. We encounter that underground garden where they encounter a moss man. And Olivia mentions a little bit that in the past she's actually, even though she was forbidden from coming into this room, she's actually been down there a few times when she was younger. And we get that shot of the moss man meeting them for the first time, or meeting Yunan for the first time. They keep walking, they encounter the shadowfish as well. Olivia Olivia's just guessing or predicting, but she's probably correct that this is where all the prisoners from other worlds are stored. So then eventually they come across this giant ominous door. They mentioned earlier that there were rumors about a monster guarding Marcy. They go inside, they find Marcy in the tube, they bust her out. We get those ominous eyes on the wall. Marcy's still a little bit disoriented from her time in the tube. Just when they're about to get out, all the walls light up, and we get this kind of VR holographic projections that have somehow read their minds and kind of it forms some of their biggest fears, where like Olivia sees her mom like being upset that she allowed Andreas to like ruin the land around them. Yunan sees a grub hog, which is apparently scarred her as a childhood when it grabbed her hand. And then, like, of course, like we see like these mutated versions of whatever fears they had come and chase after them. And then Marcy, of course, sees Anne and Sasha like being upset that she brought them to Amphibia. It becomes like this weird monster thing, General Grievous, Sashan looking thing. And then eventually Yunan figures out that the eyes are projecting everything, and then they all set out to like destroy all the eyes and destroy the simulation. They think they're about to get out, but then of course Andreas is waiting at the door, and then we find out that his crown has like the weird same eye thing that we saw from the giant multi-eyed mechanical creature, which comes down from the ceiling at the same time and grabs Marcy. And then Andreas talks about how studying these creatures from other worlds, such as the Moss Man, helped improve their medical tech, while Shadowfish allowed them to cheat death. And basically, all of Newtopia's smartest minds downloaded themselves into this mechanical beast known as the Core. And it's been wanting a new host, and it's decided that the only host they would choose is the one that would beat Andreas at Flipwart, which was Marcy. So we get that shot of Marcy getting taken over by the Core. Like whatever the Core's previous shell was has seemingly been emptied and gone into Marcy. And the episode ends with this possessed Marcy, dubbed Darcy by the credits apparently, ends with that thing speaking through Marcy, and that's the episode. That's Yunan and Olivia. So there's a lot of background lore to go through. There's a lot to discuss here. Like I really like this episode because it did give us quite a bit of answers. Not all of them, but it gave enough. It definitely confirmed a lot of suspicions we've had for the past year about what's going on with Andreas, and now we've learned the Core. And I really enjoyed how it was framed from Yunan and Olivia's perspective. That kind of gave us a new perspective on this, I guess, the show in general, since we're mostly focused on Anne, or even we focused a little bit on Sasha as well, but this is mostly focused on a pair of characters we haven't really seen that much. And then until later on, it kind of reintroduces Marcy into the season again, or into the show again. And yeah, there wasn't really a lot of fighting. It was just Olivia and Yunan walking through the castle, and some of it was confirmed. Like a lot of it it revisited a lot of places, but gave us like the context we needed. So I guess that's where a lot of the satisfaction came from, and then the ending especially, which I guess I guess we'll save the ending speculation and discussion about what the core is uh, after we go through Yuna and Olivia's story. I guess starting with Pixels, what were your thoughts on this segment?
This girl can't catch a break. I'm sorry. It's just holy crap. But this episode, it was good. But with you saying, because in the trailer we did see that clip of, I thought that she would be fighting the robots. So like, where's the fight scene? Okay, did we get duped for some? Do we get duped? But I kind of was okay with it because it was a sneak around in a way, and I feel like there's a lot more bots than there is in hallways, so they would respond more quickly. But I really love this. This is another good episode. It's we got to learn more about Yunan and Olivia, especially Olivia, which I'm glad to learn more about. And I'm glad we got a flashback of Marcy and stuff, but hearing the lines and seeing because in the beginning we saw like the whole everything with the trees and the animals and a wide shot, but we go into the present where it's almost industrial. You know what I mean? Like with the factories and the robots we see. When Andrea said the word device, I was like, oh crap, we're at that part now. We're heading into that part. It's just also there's the robotic voice of the core. I thought that we in the trailer we got a different voice from that. So I'm wondering if this is like a last minute change, or
I think we'll save that discussion for later. But yeah, I think I think it's going to be from someone else.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. But this is another really good episode. Just we got 2 weeks into the Christmas episode, and I'm really not ready for that. So yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Pixels. Uzbeks, what were your thoughts on this segment?
It was very good. For obvious reasons, I didn't have like the most fun ever watching it, but like in terms of just sheer quality, it's I think the best of season 3. Probably the best pure plot since True Colors. We've discussed in the past how sometimes Amphibia has a problem rushing and lacking emotional moments, especially in the 15-minute segments. I don't think it had that problem here. I thought we got great characterization for Olivia and Yunan, which we hadn't gotten before. I mean, we got some like a good look at them, especially Olivia. We got a good look into where Marcy is. Andrews was great. Keith David was great. That final scene was brutal, but it was some of the best animation we've seen in the series thus far. There's great character parallels, both among the people we've seen here and with other characters throughout the show. The plot, like, it got started right away, but it didn't feel too rushed. It gave us great insights into all 4 of the characters. Well, plus the core. Yeah, it was just... this is definitely, I think, the best episode of Season 3 so far.
All right. Thank you, Uzbeks. Nick, what were your general thoughts on the segment?
Honestly, I mean, basically you guys said, I was really happy to get characterization for both Yunan and Olivia, especially after Season 2, where I didn't feel unsatisfied, but I was really interested in them and just learning more about them. So I'm happy that this episode gave us that. Especially Olivia here. I feel like they're definitely setting something up for her because that flashback scene, as much as it was supposed to be for Marcy, it was like really important for Olivia too. You know, just learning what not only in Utopia but Amphibia as a whole meant to her. That was really nice. Really, yeah. Also, yeah. This I love Andrews, so I love it when the show like definitely tells you that he is a compelling villain. There are like layers to him. There's complexity. Like I just loved every scene of Andrews in this episode. Like loved it. Yunan was great here. Marcy was great here. A lot of emotional scenes I felt hit perfectly here. Like especially at the end. I don't know. I don't even know. I just have like a lot of thoughts about this episode, so I can't collect them perfectly. But like, I'm just gonna say like pretty damn good.
All right, thank you, Nick. And yeah, Amphibia is no stranger to having segments that focus outside of the core cast, but I guess Olivia and Yunan, we haven't really seen too much of them compared to like characters like even Ivy or Toadstool or Wally. So like having the first, I'm looking at the time here. I'm going up until the part where they meet Marcy, or meet up with Marcy again. It's essentially 5 minutes. So nearly half the segment is focused around them with like maybe like the flashback scene with Marcy and Andreas in the beginning, but we're following them for the first 5 minutes, and yeah, I think this definitely gave a lot more context to Olivia's character than Yunan. But then I don't think Yunan really needed like whatever they gave to us in this episode was more than enough to kind of flesh out Yunan's like history, like Yunan's life and motivations and whatever.
Even looking back, like when she gets mad at Sprig for breaking the statue, or when she gets mad at Marcy and Anne for trashing the palace, that all comes back here.
Yes.
In the sense of protecting. It's a great parallel with Andreas. I mean, she swore this oath to her mother. Andreas is trying to do what his ancestors want. So there's that parallel. So yeah, it's just a really good sort of introduction. The revelation that she snuck down gives her a bit more of a rebellious streak. Yeah, there's a lot with Olivia this.
And since it's at the beginning of the segment, I kind of want to touch on how the show very explicitly points out that Andreas is like all the material required for Andreas' invasion has to come from somewhere. Yes. And I really liked how they kind of covered like the sustainability and like the environmental impact that this type of world that existed in Amphibia before and is coming back now, like this kind of like advanced world came with a cost.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're so right about that. Because we only saw the floating council, right? We never really saw like what was underneath it, what it took to manage all of that machinery. We never saw that.
Andreas was talking about how great Utopia was, and we saw these like robed newts with these floating screens, but none of the like consequences of that.
Yes, and I was trying
about this glorious past where Utopia was great, that he's going to restore, but that restoration is destroying Utopia.
Right, and I was trying to look for an article that I felt like I saw in 2019 about Matt talking about like themes of environment. But I think the article the only article I could find was like talking about Anne and her environment and without her phone and whatever. So maybe I was misremembering something, but I felt like Matt mentioned once or twice in an interview like back in 2019 about like themes of like sustainability, environment, or whatever. And I don't know whether like I was misremembering things or not, but I'm just glad those themes came back into play because it's very relevant. It's a nice parallel to like the real world as well as like this, even in this story itself, like seeing Andreas like this robot army that like this army Andrews is manufacturing. It's not this like magical just a bunch of robots come out. Like there's a clear cost to all of this, and then as well as Andrews can't manufacture the solution to every problem he has or every like worker he needs, like which is why he probably needed frog laborers, because he needed to focus all like production on like making combat robots instead of making more like just general construction workers. Like there's a clear focus on Andrews. Okay, like use every resource you have here, whatever you can find, and just like eventually throw it at Earth once that happens. And then I guess next we could talk about how there were a lot of callbacks to the Newtopia arc, which makes sense because we're in Utopia. Like sleepover to end all sleepovers, we saw Shadowfish and the Mossman. We got answers. Or we got confirmation.
It was. I think we definitely can say it sort of was in the style of the sleepover, right? Like where like the characters are rushing to get to the location, and then we have all these background details popping up, just either having like foreshadowing to them or just like giving us some form of confirmation. And yeah, that's what we really got from this. I'm gonna say let's just say last half of the episode.
Right, and like in Sleepover to End All Sleepovers, they ran through all this, and then at least in Olivia and Yunan, we just got to like walk through it.
Yeah, because like they're definitely trying to tell us something, right? Like there's like we're revisiting all these locations we saw over a season ago. Like they're definitely trying to make us slow down and think. Wait a minute, just piece things together here. Like there is definitely a reason why we retraced their steps back then.
And we got that like nice scene of the Mossman. So apparently, this seems to be the same Mossman that Olivia met when she was a girl, like when she was younger. Cause she immediately knew it was like harmless when it met Yunan. And they don't really spell it out for you. But they just like Olivia just casually mentions, "Oh, it's harmless. Like he's friendly."
Yeah.
It kind of implies that she's met it before.
Yeah, I think Olivia might have mentioned that she snuck down here a couple of times.
She snuck down there, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. But yeah, sure, I was going to mention. So I remember. Yeah, it's when you were mentioning like the environmental damage that Andrus' campaign was having on Amphibia. Like even I feel like it's right now they've kind of swapped the color palettes for Amphibia. They kind of swapped the color palettes for season 1 Earth flashbacks with Utopia. Like it's a lot duller now. They're using a lot more brown, like a lot more brownish colors. Like everything's just so devoid of life at this point. I don't know. It's just such a nice contrast because like Amphibia it just used to be this wondrous, amazing world, but now like we're fully aware of just how dangerous it really is. Well, I mean, there are obviously, there are always creatures trying to kill them, but you know what I mean. Like this is definitely something even worse.
Oh, there's also the line that Olivia's family has been serving.
Oh, the Leviathans.
The Leviathan family for like generations. So like,
yeah.
I'm guessing they were all in the dark about what was actually going on.
Yeah, I guess.
Or maybe because there were other worlds, they didn't really need to see the impact of their legacy on their own world.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, there's a good chance they might have like fully drained those other worlds, right? Like the Shadowfish world, the Mossman world. Like there's a chance. There's so.
Yeah, there's a chance that the Mossman and Shadowfish in Amphibia are like the last ones. Now, there's also a chance that when the box got lost, the Shadowfish and Mossman like got independence.
Yeah.
So, pick your poison. I don't think we're gonna get I don't think we're ever gonna visit those worlds. So.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, we basically got what we needed to from those two. So like, There's some crazy
It does
stuff in
raise
this episode.
interesting questions about the Moss Man in Wartwood
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
and what's he doing there, bud? And those ruins he's near, like, was there a fort there? Like, what's the deal here? And that may be something Sasha may want to look into, although she doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, maybe Newtopia wasn't the only place that had, I guess, prisoners from other worlds. Maybe it was spread out through Amphibia. Then once everything collapsed, once the box left and everything kind of reverted back to I don't want to say evolved. They kind of not devolved. It evolved into its natural state when the world when the world went on without, I guess, the technological wonders Newtopia had. Like, these other creatures were able to just roam around in solitude.
Yeah. Plus, I'm guessing after Andros' friends betrayed him, he wasn't like the most active king. I'm guessing, because it seems like we saw how he handled kingly duties. Kingly duties on a daily basis, right? Like, Olivia always has to remind him to act like a king. In First Temple, towards the ending, Yunan tries to warn Andros about a potentially coming invasion. What does he have to say about it? He doesn't care.
Well, granted, at the time, Marcy, since Marcy was there, he was probably fixated on that.
Yeah, that's true.
But then maybe it would be nice to know how what Andros is doing for 1,000 years after the box just disappeared. What was he and the Cord doing? Were they just biding their time or just waiting?
I had
probably a lot of planning with that.
Skipman dude was, there was a Skipman there. Maybe he was looking for other humans. If they didn't beat him at Flipport or whatever and weren't a viable host, I don't know.
And maybe that plot point is still open to see what's happening.
Yeah, I've always liked the idea of
the Dr. Octopus guy went to Amphibia theory.
Oh, rest in peace.
You need a gong sound effect whenever we discuss a theory dying.
Or those Hunger Games, those horns, and then they have the tribute in the night sky.
Yeah.
Except it's just our theories. just 5 paragraphs.
Yeah, lamenting a theory that never would. But yeah. Yeah. I do find it funny that Yunan is complaining about the king going crazy when she's like, Yunan?
Yeah. It's a pretty funny contrast from Toad. I guess I don't know. It's just a pretty funny contrast from Toadcatcher, where she was practically insane, right? Just ruthless, bloodthirsty, just a killer right there.
You could tell she spent less time with Marcy than Olivia because she's seems to be basing her opinions on Sasha rather than Marcy.
Yeah. Calling them all traitorous backstabbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Andreas wants slave labor from the frogs.
Yeah, he didn't even say he didn't say just anyone. He just said frogs.
Just about frogs.
They're still the bottom of the totem pole or whatever. But that'll be fun for Sasha, I guess.
Yeah. And
I think you were going to mention something, but I forgot. I thought you were going to mention something about the Skipman thumb.
I really like the idea that maybe this wasn't the most recent human encounter that Andros has had or heard about. But maybe there's, because of a series of events, he wasn't able to actually pinpoint them, but just heard the whispers.
You're just aware of their presence at some time?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
yeah, I like that idea.
especially since we know like time moves 1-to-1, and then
Yeah, just
like he'd be like, "Wait, what? There's a human
Yeah.
where?" And he's like, "Send everyone, send everyone." He's like, "Oh shit, they're gone."
Yeah, they're already gone.
Goes back to
Yeah.
sitting on his chair for another
Yeah.
like 20 years.
Imagine having to be the messenger who tells Andrews that like they're gone. I can't imagine what he would do to them. Like, God.
Feed the shadowfish.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He's like, can you check the basement for me real quick?
Locks the door.
Yeah, he leaves them down there. But
But I guess back to the basement discussion. Like, we met the Moss Man, we met the fat shadowfish. We get to that door. Actually, wait, no, I can't. We can't talk about the core yet. I'll talk about the door later. They get Marcy out. I like how she can't really walk since she's just been floating for a few weeks. I like how like Olivia just had like a blanket, like a teacup, and
yeah.
just like poured her some tea.
Yeah, she's very motherly like that. And that was that was pretty sweet. I know people are always talking about Mom Olivia, so like I guess there's that for them, yeah. That was pretty
Yeah,
cute.
and then like Olivia like shook her down.
Yeah, but you didn't slap Marcy in the face, didn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, she did. She slapped her like 3 times, started shaking her by the
Yeah. And
By the collar.
Marcy, yeah. She something clearly is up with him. Like her immediate reaction was like, "Oh, I got stabbed. Sorry, Anne." Like she thinks it's Sasha and Anne. I'm not even sure she ever realized that she was stabbed in the chest.
And she was pretty delirious at that scene, and like, yeah, it's just I don't know. You can tell she's still dealing with a lot of guilt and just a lot of damage after all that. But oh, go ahead.
Yeah, she's clearly very out of it at the start. Once she's in the thing, like, I think I found it a little odd how quickly she like snapped into the danger and was like, okay, and then like immediately after that whole like Anne Sasha thing happened, she like is immediately back to like hugging Olivia and Yunan and like, yay guys, we're a good team or whatever. Like there didn't seem to be that sort of long term effect.
I guess she was exhausted at that point or something.
What?
No, I'm just guessing she was exhausted at that point. I'm not sure. Like afterward, like I'm guessing she got hyped up into battle, and then after all that happened, she was just drained at a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, like I guess. I mean, I am kind of sad that she's going through this. But also, I'm like, but I also have to say it's a pretty neat. It's a pretty neat. I don't even call it detail idea. Just have Marcia still feel delirious, weak after True Colors. Like you really do get to see the effect that it still has on her.
Yeah. I really liked all the hallucinations. I think Olivia feeling pressured by her ancestors, that makes sense. By her mother, that makes sense. Interesting parallel with Andreas. Yudan, the Grubhog, nice season 1 callback. An explanation of the war it was going to. Some comic relief. We didn't get as much into like Yunan's psyche. But I thought it was a great detail of how like Marcy knows this is fake. She knows it's real. Like not real, like she sees that it's a projection. And she still breaks down in tears when Anne and Sasha show up in the hallucination thing. Like it's just that heavy for her.
Yeah, like she's still feeling of like a lot of guilt after True Colors.
Yes,
but
and it's in the school, like in the place. It's like in LA, the place she took them away from.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. That, yeah, because it's still really, really, really affecting her. It's just really sad, I guess. Yeah.
It's really sad. What was I gonna say? I just had something on me. Oh well. Oh.
I like how like she was like struggling to walk towards them, and she knew it was a hallucination, but she immediately was trying to talk to them.
Yeah. I do wonder, obviously we'll talk a bit more about the core in a bit, but how did it know all these fears? Is it psychic?
I wasn't sure if it was
Guessing
the
so,
core
like
itself or just the device itself
Yeah,
that was able to
Yeah, I'm not sure. The other thing I will say, if the core has eyes and ears all over the castle, with the crown, get a little ahead of ourselves. It could have just watched and figured out based on what it saw of Yunan, it spied on Yunan and found out she was afraid of Grubhogs and knew Olivia was sensitive about her mother or whatever.
Oh, so it could be the case that just because Olivia, Yunan, and Marcy have all been around the castle, that it probably remembers.
Yeah, and I find
Conversations.
all that data.
It's a little more interesting that way rather than just it taps into your subconscious
Yeah,
fears.
yeah, right. So yeah, I like that
gives,
idea
big
better.
brother vibe. It sort of shows. Obviously, I don't want to get too much into the core now, but the intelligence to figure all that out without psychic powers.
Right, and it also had to visualize.
Yeah,
that stuff too.
I mean, they did a good
actually,
job.
Now, maybe there's a little bit of mind reading.
Yeah, maybe a little, but
I mean, they did a great job of making them look monstrous though. Every single monster form, just really gruesome stuff right there. Especially
Monster Mom.
The Monster Mom, the Grub Hogs, especially just the mashup of Sasha and Anne, just a monstrous manifestation of of Marcy's guilt and regret, just right there. Which is really great. It's really great.
Yeah.
I mean, to all those Sasha Ann fans out there, you got what you got what you
Yeah,
wanted.
there it is.
Big time Steven Universe reference.
Oh yeah, they it was a fusion. Oh man.
But I liked how they worked together to defeat the eyes. No, this is not Sasha and I foreshadowing, but that was fun, them sort of breaking out of this hallucination together. Marcy using both her clumsiness and her arrow shooting ability.
Yeah, I like how she just bumped into some of those eyes.
And I liked how, even though Marcy was obviously going through a lot here, that she was still Marcy. She was still clumsy. She was still the first she thought it was so cool that it was this VR room, even as it's trying to kill him. She still had her crossbow ability. It's still Marcy. Which makes it all the more tragic what happens next, but
yeah, classic Marmar.
Yeah, it was classic Marmar, but extra. So
yeah, so we got to that point where they were trying to break out, and Andrew's just
yeah.
Andrew just smacks them. He just palms them. He doesn't even punch them.
It's not even a slap. He just
pushes them.
He just pushes them. He pushes them down the stairs. That was holy shit. That was low-key a jump scare.
From what he says, he'd known all along because of the eyes and everything. So how long do you think was he just standing out there the whole time waiting for them to break out?
I think so. He was just waiting for them to start marching up the stairs.
I'm sort of thinking that as this was one final test by the core for Marcy.
Ooh. Okay, actually, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, just one final test of intelligence to really prove her as a good host.
Yeah. But anyway, that's how Andrea's not immediately coming down and grabbing them.
Yeah.
He's just waiting around the post, just waiting, getting hyped up.
Yeah, okay, you can do this. You can do this, Andres.
Shove.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he walks out and he's just with Keith David voicing him, just the way he enunciates
Oh yeah.
his entrance, he's like, "We have so much to discuss." Like just like
Yeah, it's
like a
so-
business
David-
meeting.
Is so great in this. And like this isn't even like something he's like super invested in. Like I'm sure he does his best and everything, but this isn't like how Brenda Song, this is like her first voice acting role. Anna Kana's really into Sasha's character arc. Keith David is doing this for a paycheck. And it's just so great. His
I do
performance.
want to like one day like someone should just ask him about Amphibia, because I know like certain roles like he does have like a few thoughts about, like I know Princess and the Frog and Goliath. Like those are roles that he like
yeah, cool party.
legitimately-
Yeah,
like he has like a connection to those. Like
yeah, like he came back as a Goliath in the DuckTales. Is anyone here watching DuckTales?
I'm watching. I haven't even gotten to season 3 yet. I have not gotten to season 3
Okay,
yet.
so
oh
Spoilers.
okay, so I will not
Wait.
discuss. Shit, sorry.
No,
No,
I don't
it's
know
not-
anything else. I know you're fine.
actually no, it was because
fine.
you didn't spoil anything. It's
Yeah,
fine.
I didn't really hear anything. I was like, oh shit.
Okay, so I guess if you've seen DuckTales, you know what I'm talking about. But so I'm interested. Is this like, does he view Andrews as one of his great roles, or is it like Flame King and Adventure Time or whatever? Like just like,
He can see
yeah,
up
I
the
voiced
stairs.
someone in this animated series
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I would
saw-
love. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm interested in how Keith David would view that.
Yeah, I would really just imagine him and Haley Tajube just getting like an interview along with Matt. Like, I would love that. Just because, like, yeah, I've always wanted that myself. Just how does Keith David feel about? Because this isn't his first rodeo. So like, how does he feel about voicing Andrews? Like, is he one of his favorite characters to voice? Does he recognize how great of a villain he is? Like, just how much does he really care about this role? I'd love to find that out too.
Yeah, I think him and Haley. How do you say her last name?
I've just been guessing. Like Haley Tajube. I think it's
Haley
either
Tajube?
Haley Tajube or something. I'm just
Like
guessing.
her. I think her and Keith David are the only members of like the. They're the only cast members that we haven't really heard from yet about Amphibia.
Yeah, they've never been on for an interview themselves.
I hope that happens eventually, because
I think we'll get Haley too at some point. I'm less sure about
Keith David.
Keith David.
He's like, Andrew, it's just another Flame King, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
if-
that's
I was joking.
I feel like
yeah,
so we should
that's
just tweet
my
him.
point, is, like, Troy Baker's been in a ton of stuff. Bill Farmer's a like main cast, so he has to do this. But like Troy
Yeah.
Baker's been in a lot of stuff, but he's still been like active as
Yeah.
Bronze VA.
I think if someone just tweeted and asked Keith David on Twitter, maybe he might reply, because he's done that in the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I remember like one time like someone asked if he wanted to be a Transformer character, and then like as a Transformer fan, I just realized like, oh man, like Keith David has never like, I'm surprised he's never like been in that
Wow.
in the
That's
franchise
criminal.
before.
That's criminal.
It is, but anyway, I'm getting.
See, he feels like he'd be a great fit for Transformers. Wow.
Yeah,
cannot
that's what-
believe he hasn't. Wow.
That's what angered me. But
Wow.
that's just me getting off topic a little bit. But I guess we can talk about the core. So this thing is we saw this back in the first temple in that last post episode scene where it just shows up for like 5 seconds, and that our speculation ran rampant for. I can't believe it's still the same year. Like, it feels like a year ago, but it's only been like 6 months since the first temple aired. Or not for 6 months, but he's like 7
Yeah.
or 8.
And,
Yeah,
and
8
I
months.
Think about 8. Yeah, 8.
I just realized one of the first episodes that like really dug into Marcy's character, like it was very Marcy centric, it was about her and her flaws, was the episode where they first introduced this.
Right, with Andrus
Yeah.
like at Marcy at the Gates at like the very ending, like we hear Andrews talking, and we thought, okay, he's just in a dark room talking to himself with a chessboard, and then with the revelation of the crown
Oh
being
shit! You're right. I hadn't
connected,
even thought about that.
Yeah.
yeah, like that's who he was probably talking to now. And I didn't point this out. It was Princess Cthulhu in our chat. So yeah, that nicely. What we thought was like just a weird thing was actually like relevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we all kind of inferred, okay, maybe this is the night. But no, this is the core apparently, which I guess we'll talk about
Yeah, we'll talk.
the status of all these like deities in Amphibia later, but this was like the core is manufactured but has apparently souls, or not souls, just like the memories or the minds of a bunch of Newtopia's greatest minds. And I think someone on Reddit pointed out how there were 8 coffins in the
Yeah,
basement.
but it has 12 eyes. And he did say Amphibia's greatest minds.
Okay,
not
and then
Utopia's, which I do feel is significant.
I know someone pointed out how like the door to the knight's lair had like 8. What I assumed they were 8 legs, but like it could look like 8 newts if you wanted to.
Yeah, plus there's just center of the eye, like sort of just giving an idea that they all like sort of get drawn into the center right there. So, yeah, I guess I still like both. I mean, I feel like there are only being 8, potentially 8 beings inside the core. I feel like that's sort of, I don't know. I mean, it's still a cool idea, but I just really like the idea of where we're talking like maybe like hundreds of people who've lived just shoved into that thing. Like I really like that idea too. But no, both are still great. Just the idea for the core, they really threw us for a loop because we always imagined something different for what was in Andrews' basement. Like this is. I feel like for me personally, this is like something much more horrific than I ever could have imagined. Like this is like something just like a science fiction horror right here. Like this is just, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah, because I think what makes it so interesting is Amphibia has a lot of like elements that are very like mystical or otherworldly in nature. So having this like horror be like a product of Newtopia's like itself, like Newtopia's tech and their own science, it kind of like grounds the show in a horrific way.
Yeah, it's
it's not some like cosmic otherworldly being with its own like purpose is like dictated by the universe or something. It's none of that. It's just a bunch of guys in a lab were like, and the royal family were like, hey, if we put all these guys into one, we get a smart thing, and we can do more stuff. That's basically it.
And it's like disgusting. Like it's just like it's a bunch of people refusing to die who want to further their ambition onto the present. Like we're talking probably what more, at least more than 1,000 years into the past, right? Because like core, can we assume the core is older than Andreas?
The core is older than Andreas.
Yeah, it's definitely older than Andreas. So like we're talking like just generations of Levi. But I mean, maybe Levi. I don't even know. This is the smartest minds in Amphibia, right? Like it's just insane. Just the whole idea of it.
And that really, it kind of makes you think about the timeline for all this, because the core was created after, like, Andrews mentions that once they discovered studied the shadowfish, they figured out how to create the core. So, like, all this traveling, all this exploring into other worlds, that predates the core. And then by extension, like, the Calamity Box and the gems, like, the Calamity Box predates the core. and then the gems themselves predate the box itself. So you have this like this timeline is like super like how did we get from one to the next?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
Like-
crazy though. Like they just like when they felt like they I don't even know. Like they. It's just crazy to think about. Like they went from conquerors to people searching for a way to live forever. Like that's just insane.
I mean, if you have everything you want, you don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just a great, in terms of the show being about change and moving on and accepting that.
Yeah, you have this like monstrous form that like just
This monster,
That,
these people
yeah.
who like perverted, not only like mutilated their bodies or whatever, but like mutilated their minds and like turned themselves into this weird like hive mind thing, just so they wouldn't have to die.
And probably the intention was that, okay, like we're maybe at the time, like the rationale was like, okay, we're gonna go, like we're gonna die, but like Newtopia still wants our help, and it's like, anyways, we're not gonna live, so we can just like we can devote ourselves to this glorious purpose, and then like I'm guessing as more mind, the question, I'm guessing they added more minds to the core over time.
Yeah.
Instead of just like 8 people at once, but I'm guessing maybe like over time, like the core probably got more and more like unstable as more people started like.
I mean,
Yeah,
Aegis just calls it an it. Like, I'm not sure there's any individuality left.
Yeah, it's not an individual it. Yeah,
Uploading. Although some people would probably, well, we'll talk about possible theories later.
and then we get to the point where Marcy's the host, and we get to see like this show, man. Like Andrus is like insane, but you see those moments where he's definitely not. He's not as like, you can see like the hesitation and like the regret, but he still does. Like he still goes forward with all of this.
yeah, like he's like he can admit that he does care for them in a way, but like he cannot let that compromise his plans. Like, he's been planning this. He's been planning and going forward with this for far too long to let any sentimentality just get in the way of all this. So I mean, it's just. Plus, you could see her. I mean, he's probably begging the core for a long time, like not to make him do this, not to make him give up Marcy, like because she was a great candidate, but at the same time, it didn't exactly have to be her. But like core, like at that point, I don't think the core just it seemed like it was pretty frantic at wanting to find a host for it to go into. So I think like. I don't know. It was just, I don't know. It's just bad luck on Marcy's part. Just winning that game of Flipboard. Like we don't know exactly when it happened, but like that's what doomed her at this point.
Yeah, I do think they could have done with a little more explanation, because like Andrus outwitted her to get the box, which is like real life as opposed to a game. So like
People did mention that maybe the royal family themselves can't be. They can't be part of the. They can't be part of the core. So like maybe. So maybe like they were fine with using Andrus as like the. I guess as like the final test.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna assume that like the robots aren't smart enough to host it properly.
Which it does beg the question where like you had the core was able to sustain itself in that body for who knows how long, at least 1,000 years.
And the giant spider robot.
Yeah, so like why does it need a host now? Like, but we do know it was just in a basement for so long, maybe like hooked up for like life support.
Yeah. Plus, I guess they're just really itching just because I mean I think maybe they didn't find anyone as. I mean I think with them they know Marcy's not like the best they can get, but like they were really looking for a host at this point. You know, because
I mean everything
that's why
the invasion. I do think it's interesting that when we look at like Andrea stabbing Marcy, like that actually probably delayed the invasion a good while. Just because like he had to wait for her to heal enough to become a host.
So Andrews is waiting for Marcy to heal. So okay, we know like his plan all along. Yeah, his plan all along.
Immediately.
So probably right after the Wartwood game, he's like, okay, like the core was probably thinking, okay, we're going into that. Do you think Andrus tried to like save Marcy, like by stabbing Marcy, was trying to like prevent her from being the host?
No, like he clearly yells the box.
I know, but it's just like imagine he just like stabbed. He's like, oh,
I don't think that was conscience.
I don't.
Look what you made me do.
Oh, so he did right. He did want Marcy to be the host.
Yeah, but, like now look what you made me do. That's not like something you say if you're like trying to mercy kill someone.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's sort of like there's like double meaning to that, right? Like obviously, like he didn't want to have to harm her, but at the same time, he's like. At the same time, it's like, oh shit! I just harmed the body my master's trying to possess. Like, there's just two different meanings to that line right there.
He could have just slapped her aside.
he really could have. He really could have.
Like in this episode, he just pushed them.
Pushed them down.
That is one thing I kind of wish we'd gotten like a scene of Yunan and Olivia trying to fight or like get Marcy out of the chair, and then Andrew just like slaps him into a wall. Because I felt like they just sort of stood there.
Probably because they're staring in horror, right? I mean, they have like.
I get that, but it did feel a little like, yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know, but they just as soon as they saw Andrews, they didn't fuck right. Like that's when they started like standing still, watching all this go down.
Yeah, and it was just horrific with like the way.
Yeah.
Like, of course they can't. Well, I'm saying they can't show it being too brutal, but like Marcy's already strapped to a chair, getting like electrocuted with knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge. They're just zeros and ones, man. They're not.
It's all in my head. But yeah, the core and it taking over Marcy. Like I just saw there was a subreddit post about Marcy getting punished too hard, but this is like. She's the one who didn't want to change the friend group. She's the one who wanted to go to Amphibia for this adventure, and now she's bearing the brunt.
Right, but it's like you don't want. The problem is you can't say any of the girls deserve.
Oh no,
a punishment because basically Amphibia is like whatever mistake the girls make, Amphibia multiplies it by like 100.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It amplifies their mistakes, which is. Sort of broadly what fiction is like, especially fantasy or sci-fi, taking real-world issues and interpersonal relationships and, like, expanding them massively to make it easier to comprehend and, like, you know, like, how Star Wars takes a father-son relationship and, like, turns it into this intergalactic war.
Right.
That's what all fiction does. And so that's what's happening here, is we're seeing the consequences of being stuck in the past and trying to force your friends to say the same. But the change comes anyway. And in a harmful way. Because you tried to fight it instead of...
Yeah, they usually like learn they messed up in like the most horrible ways. Like Sancho has to fall off a tower, then Marcy has to go for all it's called true colors. Yeah.
Yes.
And I found Andrus's wording after the process completed, where the core was meant to lead them to their destiny, and like I know, like he's probably just talking about like conquest and whatnot, but we do like there's still the case that still the case back in the first temple. Like they did mention like undoing a prophecy. So in this case now, like, was the can we talk about the prophecy and stuff, or is there anything else you guys want?
I think we're open season now for.
I
Okay.
just wanted to quote Princess Cthulhu because I just know how to do this for him. It's just like this is his words. I'm just gonna do that for him. So I'm gonna quote it here. It was just something I wanted to bring up that he mentioned like a while ago. So he said the core is a product of generations of societal evil and amphibia, people working tirelessly to create this horrible monstrosity for the good of their country. It is the literal past, the imperialistic legacy of amphibia, twisting the present and burning the nation to cinders so it can continue to conquer and expand in perpetuity. Not for any garrity goal, but just expand for expansion's sake in an attempt to recreate some non-existent pre-Lisperian past. So I don't know. But before we go into all the prophecy stuff, I feel like I just really wanted to focus on like the thematic weight of the core itself and just how it's influencing the present right now.
Yes, it is very much the past influence the present. I think obviously there's the imperialism stuff that DC explained there very succinctly. I think this sort of desperate dash for immortality, this defiance of the natural order. I talked about some in a text chat, so not here, but like that this is somehow worse than if it was like some eldritch being from beyond the night corrupting Andreas. No, this is
all them.
This is all them. This is like, I get they're not human, but like this is humans are the real, like, all of this came from like conquering and exploiting other worlds. This is like all of the societal problems. Like Polly's joked about it in Spider-Sprig. Condensed into one thing, condensed into this one singular evil, which
isn't even singular.
Could run into trouble because, like, all of society's evils, they're not all concentrated. They're this messy web, not just one singular thing. Although I think having multiple minds in there could help. Yeah, it's this. It's not something Andrews found. Andrews didn't become evil because of some outside force or like some innate evil within him. It was the pressure of his society and his heritage weighing down on him that turned him into this monster.
And like this is something that Andrews always had to like. This is something Andrews was always exposed to. So like the fact that like some random like teenage girl was like actually making him like somewhat conflicted in this quest, or maybe this isn't the first time he's been conflicted in this quest. Just for sure, whatever happened with him and his friends, like,
and that's another. I mean, you're talking about imperialism or like desperate efforts to reclaim a past, the sort of reaction. This young man losing his friends and then turning to sort of reactionary ideology, not to get too political. But that's definitely something we've seen both in the history and present of sort of isolation, replacing lost friendships and social relationships and channeling into this sort of evil, expansionist ethos.
And I also like how it seems like to me, Andrews has been Andrews is loyal to the core, but he's always like we've seen multiple scenes of him doubting some of like the decisions being made. But it seems that like the core accepts this because it always knows that Andrews is going to like fall in line at the end of the day. So it has like no problem with Andrews always expressing doubt over its actions.
Yeah, plus you can see Andrews. If there's one person that Andrews is terrified of, like, it's the core, right? Like, even if Andrews does question, like, their decision-making, like, you can see, like, you can still sort of hear the fear in his voice, the hesitation to even speak sometimes. Like, it's pretty damn interesting, because it just sets him apart from, like, the Mad King persona he's been playing since True Colors at this point.
And I liked that even when he's ordering like the enslavement of the frogs, he's like makes a joke. Like that's who he is. He is like a dude who makes bad jokes. And he only stops when it gets really serious.
Yeah, I love the fact they're still keeping that goofy vibe to him. No, because I just really like that. Like even so he's no, he's not a twist film, but you guys know what I mean. Like even so, there is a big shocking reveal to how much of an evil bastard he is. It doesn't really change who he is at the same time.
Yes,
he's an evil bastard, but he's also like a very goofy one at the same time. So that's really fucking great.
And like in the first temple, like we got to see like the way he addressed the core, and even the size of it as well, like how small Andrus was, like compared to it, and like even in this case, like just that scene of him, like what looks like he's tying to himself, like it makes him feel even more smaller.
Yeah, like damn, it's just like the core just freaks me out. It's just the more you think of that, it's the whole the concept of it is
the whole concept is freaky. The possessing of Marcy is creepy. Just like the whole design of that is very cool, but in a dark way.
And then I guess we can talk about like the season 3 trailer. Like we got that line of like, "Oh, don't you think it's time to say goodbye to those childhood friends of yours?" And we like assumed it was from the core, but like
it
we
might
never
still
got.
be. It might be like inside Marcy's head. We get that.
Yeah, someone's talking to Marcy or something. So yeah, which I think it'll be a good way to still keep Marcy active in this series.
And I will
obviously,
say
like
at the
she's gonna have some kind of communication.
I appreciate that they're keeping the same voice actress, Haley too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
that's good. I'm not actually sure. Feels like it would be even creepier if it didn't have like the echoey quality to it. Like if it was just her voice in a different tone than Marcy.
Ooh, yeah, that
would have.
As opposed to this sort of, I felt it was a little over the top when it's like got this gravelly, rumbling voice with her.
the echoing, like
Yeah. Which I get, it's like multiple minds speaking from one mouth, but I just.
I'm just glad
they has a sustained dialogue in that voice. It'll start to get a little annoying.
Honestly, I'm just glad they didn't do the thing where like they switch the voices. I hate
body swap or body possession.
Yeah, I really hate that when they do. They switch. It doesn't make any sense when they do it anyway.
Yeah, it's like when characters swap bodies, the Lorax changes with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been my pet peeve of that kind of stuff. But yes. I'm really glad.
I agree.
They're keeping.
Yeah, that is the coward's way out of doing a body swap.
Yeah, I'm just really glad we're still getting Haley here. She's not. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. But yeah, just the implications. It's gonna try and conquer Earth, and I do think I expect one more twist about what their plan is. Because, like, at the end of this, like, everyone in that room already knows he's planning on conquering Earth. Or whatever.
Yeah, then he's talking, great destiny.
Revealing about his destiny, and he wants him to speak for itself. Like, it's this sort of... If it wasn't so damn creepy, I might say it's a little over melodramatic and, like, a contrived cliffhanger. But, like, it's so good, and, like, what's their destiny? What's the big plan here? It feels like there's just one more piece beyond just conquering stuff.
The night.
Yeah. Plus, the night. No, plus Andrus loves. Andrus loves putting on a big show.
He has a show.
Especially when he knows he won. That's when he really starts. That's when he really likes to rub it all in their faces. Yeah. Even so, he didn't have to do any of that. He still did it anyway.
Yeah.
Because for a long time we all kind of assumed the Knight and the Core were the same entity, and looking back at all, like, we've seen that like bucket where it's some kind of ominous figure chasing after the gems. We've seen the mural that there's this frog thing with fire, with the girls in the background. Like,
Yeah.
do you guys think there's another like entity out there that? Because to me, it feels like
I could see it.
Yeah, okay.
Because it just feels like the core itself is like it's a bunch. Even so, yeah, they're not humans, but it does feel like human beings trying to play God, right? Getting in the way of the natural order of things. So it feels like the core is sort of invasive to whatever mystical stuff Amphibia still has hidden there, like the night or the mother of homes. Like it feels like the core is not a part of that for me.
It's very notable that like the gems are the thing that's powering this castle, but the gems have nothing to do with the core.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
The color scheme is different. It's clearly, I mean, it's ran without the gems for millennia, so like it's clearly separate and like an attempt, maybe even an attempt to rival or create your own gems to prove how great your civilization is.
I always like the idea. Oh, go ahead, Uzbeks. Sorry.
As far as actually finish your thought. I've got a completely different thought.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I always got the idea that maybe like Newtopia or Amphibia itself was like heavily reliant on the gems, and then eventually decided it didn't need it, or maybe it was rejected. Like, because we know like the gems have this like very spiritual process to obtaining their power, and maybe Newtopia, in its conquest or whatever, got to a point where it couldn't recharge the gems anymore.
I'm not thinking that because the box got stolen, not like drained.
Right, but then eventually the box ran out of power.
Certainly, and if we're talking about environmental commentary, over reliance on one form of power leading to disaster when it runs out. Not that hard to see that parallel developing.
Right.
As far as we were talking about various entities, sort of going down the list, we've got the core. Honestly, I think the night just might be metaphor because like the source of the night is one line in the prophecy.
Yeah.
But that prophecy is also says 3 stars, and like no one thinks the girls are literally stars or like called the stars. So I'm thinking the night might just be a metaphor for like evil or the core's dark plans.
But like, what confuses me is that
it might be the night, but that's not actually something it gets called.
It just
because apparently the only like I'm guessing Andrew's ancestors had this book.
Yeah.
And then someone wrote this up, like thinking, okay, probably it was some mystical vision or whatever that saw all this happening. It's just that the details we've seen where like you have that demonized figure. It doesn't resemble an ohm, and it doesn't resemble the core.
Is probably the biggest contender for sort of good deity.
Yeah, plus, I just find it a little weird because like that book was, we're talking about the book in the Damned Aquarium, right? It's just I feel like, but the Leviathans were in possession of that book, right? Like it just feels, would they really pose themselves as sort of an evil threat? Like if they're looking at history from their perspective, like, would they really look at the core and call that thing evil? I mean, it seems like they're pretty proud of it themselves. So I think like
yes, but I think they're also smart enough to look at the prophecy and see that the knight is referring to the core.
That's definitely.
So it's like, why would they write themselves? Like, why would they write that for themselves, knowing that they created their own?
Well,
like they created their own threat.
The prophecy, but they want to record it if they hear about it.
Right. Okay.
I mean, they also had the details of the. It's kind of weird though, because I mean, it only had like a detail about one temple. So like, I mean, it had a detail about one temple. It had like the several. I mean, it had the 3 weapons on it. It had like that one artifact on it. We didn't really get any information of.
And I mean, it also like Marcy knew it. Well, actually, no, she didn't. But like, yeah, and I think it's worth noting the carving predates the core, so probably not the perspective of the Newtopians.
Oh, okay, so by from like whatever predates them.
Yes. People have discussed in the past how it looks, how like you could view it as the girls fighting, but it could also be like something offering the girls power. Which, if it is like the deity behind the gems,
Okay, so like, yeah, so maybe the knight and that deity in the figure aren't the same. They aren't.
I think the core is the knight at this stage.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, there's also. I mean, okay, this is something that just popped in my head, but like, yeah. I'm just trying to. Oh, yeah, no, I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
Okay, so I do think whether or not the frog in the mural is the knight or not, like, okay, maybe it's not the knight, but I do think there is another deity like out there, since like Amphibia loves working in like in groups of three.
Threes
might be an option. The mother of Olms that got brought up in Temple Frogs.
Which the name drop was very recently.
Noting that if, like, let's say this is what happened, like Pink found out about the core and was like, "No, that's bad. I'll steal the box." But then he presumably wrote about seeing the mother of Olms to lead someone to their destiny. So if we view the prophecy as like being about opposing the knight, the mother of Olms may be sort of the big good thing, or good, I say in scare codes. At least the opposition to whatever the prophecy is referring to as knight, which might not be its literal name.
Right, because my prediction was that maybe each of these larger than life or deities, whatever figures, are going to parallel each of the girls in some way. So like, the core is like the core is a clear parallel to
Wit.
To Wit. Like what is Wit without humility? It's the core.
Wit in general, it's a symbol of intelligence. The frog thing certainly looks strong. Although Mother of Olms, mother has an implication of like caring and heart. So
right, and since
there is a third.
And since we haven't seen or heard a lot about the Mother of Olms outside of like imagery, like I'm under the assumption that this thing is very detached from the events that are going on in Amphibia, and then that could play into like Anne's character arc about like
responsibility.
Right. And like maybe each of these deities lacks something that the girls need to gain. But then the question is that like we don't even know if there's going to be like.
And like, what role does Valerina and her order play in this? Like, do they know? What do they know about the prophecy? And like the temple people who created it, like the old imagery in the temple, like they call that out.
Right, so they foresaw something happening.
And if they're working for a deity who doesn't have that strikes me as a little odd.
Which I think they do, which is what would lead to either the Mother of Olms or maybe like another frog deity that we see in the. Because that's the thing, like we got introduced to the core and the Mother of Olms, yet that one frog thing has been in the background for every title card, for every episode, and we still don't know what that is. And that's what makes me. Yeah, that's what makes me believe that it is like something like a tangible, actual. Character that we're going to see later on. That's like my main like anchor.
I think we may see some design issues just because it was created very early on in the process, so we may see a little different design. But like it's literally opposed to like physical representations of the girls, as opposed to like metaphorical, a heart or a brain or whatever.
Right. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds, especially when do you guys think Marcy is not Marcy, Darcy, whatever, the core Marcy? we still have like Froggy Little Christmas where Andrews mentions like there's like deadly surprise. Is that? I think there's the possibility of that of Darcy showing up.
I think
we might get.
The question isn't if Darcy will show up.
Yeah, it's more like will he be like the
very
main threat or something?
At this point, to have like an Andrews scene without his like master, who's now like there to supervise. Yeah. I think the question was, does Anne or Sasha see Marcy? Is the big question. Like, is this like, oh, we see a scene where like Andreas is preparing to surprise with Darcy, and then it attacks, and that's the episode, or does Anne actually have to see what happened to Marcy?
I mean, that's quite a interesting thing to do in a Christmas episode. Which, I mean, there's no doubt that this is going to be a plot episode. I think,
yes,
especially with the inclusion of like Andrews in that synopsis.
Yes, I mean, maybe it's just a new robot that they have to fight.
I mean, I think what we can at least expect for like Andreas and
it's clearly Kate.
I don't want to say Darcy. I'm gonna have to get used to it, but like, we can at least expect Andrews and Darcy cameos. Like they may or may not be the main threat of the episode, but we can still expect them to have presence in an episode. So yeah,
like I hope it's not a new Frobot model because like we kind of had this whole thing with Cloakbot.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
If they were just going to introduce a new
or something, something lighthearted for the holidays.
I know that's what's throwing me off. If this wasn't a Christmas like episode, I'd think okay, it's Darcy in the mid-season finale, but like I have no idea what like this like I'm as this, like being cynical. Like I'm thinking okay, Disney wants us to be like. Maybe like Anne just like sends one or two like new interesting robot models and then
but like a Santa Claus robot, he turns evil for some reason. Like that's the question.
Or a bunch of like one Frobot with really long arms decides to like puppet a Santa.
Yeah, and the fact that there's also the episode description discusses like Anne getting into parade hijinks for her mom and the planters enacting to the holiday. Suggests that even if we do get plot, it's not going to be like True Colors or First Temple, where it's like everything on that.
I mean, problem is also the mid-season finale. Like we can still expect something,
Yeah, and I think after next week we'll get a better idea.
Yeah,
like we'll see if Give a Frog a Cookie has like big mid-season finale energy. We could be all right. It's probably just going to be some episodic fun for Christmas. Otherwise, we may be in for something.
And I think Froggy Little Christmas, not Froggy Little Christmas, if you give a frog a cookie, does bring up that, there's like a lead to get back home.
Yes, there's a lead. I think, though, that'll more likely tie into the government agent's plot than Andreas.
That's still in the background somewhere. I mean, I
think that's probably where we get that like blue beam to the energy beam to the sky scene.
And the blue-haired scientist.
Right. Yeah, I think they confirmed that she's being voiced by King. Actually, they just confirmed the character name, but not the character model. But yeah, we can infer that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nick.
I don't know. I'm just thinking they're still going to try and go out of a bang here with the mid-season finale. I mean, we're in the final season, so I can expect them really just giving us a cliffhanger ending to the first. We're talking about episode 9, right? Like that's we're only getting 9 episodes. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking like it's a third and final season. This is the mid-season finale. It's I feel like it's going to be a tradition to really just go out with a bang and really set up what the rest of the season is going to look like. So, especially when we know that like a good chunk of Earth is going to take place in Earth, and I feel like we've really made our way through that at this point. So I'm thinking like this is really where they want to start letting us open up back into Amphibia, especially with like the possessed Martian reveal here, right? Like the idea that there's this destiny that they want to fulfill, the idea that they're very, very close to getting ready to invade Earth. I'm still on the fence on whether or not even possessed Marcy will be like, will be like the main conflict of the episode. Like, I think they'll be in it, but like, we still have the trailer, right? We still have the idea that like Marcy's going to be talking to them. So I mean, there's still that to look forward to. But like, as far as I think, I say we're just gonna have to wait and see. I still believe that this is going to be a big episode. There's going to be a ton of plot involved, so I mean, everyone's going to be happy about that. But I don't know. I have high hopes for this episode.
Oh, we didn't talk about the credits for this episode.
Oh yeah, the credits.
Just black
Did
screen,
not.
yellow
They were
text,
smart
orange
enough to
text.
avoid that.
Yeah, that was
whiplash.
like, yeah, we didn't get that
Yeah, I remember
season 3 outro, which
I just remember all the jokes about how like how we get the usual season 3 outro played for that episode, but I mean, I'm assuming you guys have seen all the videos of people speeding up the outro, right? And then it sounds like people screaming or something like that. That's what it sounds like.
I tried that myself. I think it was just someone trolling us.
Oh, someone's trolling?
Yeah, because I took the source file. Like, I tried taking the
I
credits
think
and
it
speeding
makes
them up.
creepy moaning noises, but not like actual. It's not like recognizably Marcy screaming.
Yeah, it sounds like wind, to be honest. But
Oh, really? Oh, I had no clue. Damn. I guess I fell for that. Good. I mean, either way, it's still pretty creepy. I'm just glad we didn't. I'm just glad we didn't fall for that. Well, I'm just glad like our worries didn't. Well, I don't even think any of us were worrying. I mean, we still have faith in the show. Like, I do remember like a lot of people worrying that like they'd actually play the super happy outro for an episode like that. I'm glad they didn't end up doing that.
yeah, that would have felt out of place.
Yeah, I really would have.
And I'm just looking. Like, we covered Marcy getting,
Yeah.
yeah, the voice.
Have we talked about theories about like if there's anyone in particular in the core that we might want to talk about? I know that's been brought up as a possible theory, although that might be a little specific.
I don't think. I know the theories that maybe Beryl could be inside
Yes.
the core, but I feel like the core seems very, like, everything inside the core seems very on the same page, with the exception of Marcy, which even then is being taken over. And then we also got context from like Beryl's Warhammer that like Beryl did die,
Yes.
like defending the village with.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
I don't think
I'm
Beryl
not
is
sure
inside.
I buy that either.
Yeah, I don't. But yeah, I hope we get Beryl to some extent. Like, it's not going to be with the core, but I did like to. I like the idea that Beryl is like the smart one, and I do like maybe he was considered a candidate for the core, and then like he probably just like.
Hell, that could be what set off the split with Andreas and his friends. You know, like, hey, Beryl, want to be uploaded to this giant computer? Beryl's like, no.
The fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's definitely some kind of incident that really broke up this group. Because I mean, there's no way it's the fact that Andrews is a conqueror. Because I mean, they all knew that themselves. Like they knew what they were signing up for. So it can't be that. So I'm just thinking that there definitely was maybe it was learning about the Destiny. Like because I mean, I feel like the Destiny is separate from the revenge they were talking about in the First Temple. Like there's a greater idea that goes beyond just conquering Earth. And just settle all the worlds.
Create new worlds.
Okay, that's there too, actually. Okay, that's definitely there too.
But it'd just be funny if like Andrews, Beryl, and the Pink Frog are like friends for years, and then like Andrews like has their like full trust, and then finally introduces Beryl and Pink to like the core, and then like everything falls apart, and just like how did it come to this? Like I just wanted to put him inside the hive mind, like.
Man. And what else did they do? I'm just looking forward to it. Like season 3 has been great so far, and like this episode really elevated my opinion of it. Well, it's not just Olivia and Yunan. It's not just Olivia and Yunan. Like Spider-Sprig too. Like I'm just very pleased with the season's direction.
I guess, is there anything else we wanna talk about before we wrap up? Like I think I already got my Mother of Olm core night frog deity theory out there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a
I just-
theory guy.
Yeah,
but-
I just love the idea that like maybe like the frog deity's like flaw is that like it's just lazy and sleeping somewhere like
Yeah.
near Frog Valley, and then like eventually like a castle beam just like tries to fire at Wartwood and just wakes up this like Thulu
do
monster.
I'm a little torn. Like, I want Marcy out so she can like reunite with Sasha and Anne, and like we can explore that dynamic. But I also don't want this to be like so short it feels cheap.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah, like it.
So I'm hoping we get some like hallucination joint vision trip. Something
Yeah.
that like allows Marcy to interact
Communicate.
and, like, grow
Yeah.
as a character.
Yeah, I think
And like
so.
we can work towards like forgiving her from their perspective without like completely dropping this possession subplot.
Yeah,
I mean, the only
yeah,
way I
I
could
think
see that happening is that if Marcy or Sasha were still connected to the gems somehow, maybe the gems had their own connection and the girls could connect that way. But unfortunately, like we know Sasha and Marcy are completely drained.
Still can't believe I'm still taking that on the fact they don't have their powers anymore. That still bums me out just thinking about it. The fact that I won't be able to see them go Super Saiyan for a while at least. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think with the way the core is set up, I think Marcy will be conscious, and we will sort of deal with her trauma after True Colors in our own way. I mean, I wonder. I mean, we still don't fully know how, like, I guess, like the. I don't know, like the inside mechanisms of the core works. I keep tripping up, and I keep almost calling like the core the night. Like I'm still getting used to that switch, but yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna take some time to adjust.
Yeah, Darcy too. Like I'm gonna have to get used to going from possessed Marcy to Darcy.
Yeah.
Like, is it just like are they just shortening it from Dark Marcy to Darcy? Like, is that the idea of this?
Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, what
I
was
do
with
think-
that? What was with that Matt tweet about from Pride and Prejudice? Like,
The character, the guy's name, the male lead, like the main romantic interest for the protagonist, is Mr. Darcy.
No. Huh. Do you think Matt
why
meant
he
anything?
tweeted from Pride and Prejudice?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, do you think Matt meant anything like deeper than that, or is he just like, oh, they share the same name?
I honestly don't know. Pride and Prejudice is a romance novel. I mean,
Oh.
it has deeper themes. Jane Austen is one of the great writers of the English language. I haven't personally read her, though. But it's... I mean, Darcy undergoes character growth, goes from an asshole to a nice man or something. Like, I don't think it's super deep. Any more so than that, making an anime joke would represent something.
All right, yeah, I see.
Oh, here's a summary from Wikipedia. Someone posted.
yeah,
in the chat.
the last sentence matters.
Yes, the repercussions of hasty judgments and comes to appreciate the difference between superficial goodness and actual goodness. So yeah, that's Marcy's character arc. Classic Regency era literature.
Yeah, I guess it actually does fit. Wow, I didn't even notice that entry right there. Well, actually, yeah, it does really fit her, doesn't it?
Yes, and I do think that ultimately, like, this isn't permanent. She'll get separated. Like, I don't think she's part of the core now. Like, the core is in her, but she's not in the core, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
right. I don't. I think she's just the body. She's not the. She's not.
Yeah,
of course, she's not like gone.
Yeah, she's not gone. I mean, she's somewhere, right? Like, I don't know how to describe. But oh yeah, did we mention this? I think there's something interesting that Andrew said towards the beginning of the episode. He said like the device to transfer the core into a body wasn't tested yet, so it seems like Marcy's like their very first host. Like, there's never been any other one. Like, did we go over that?
That's what confused me because apparently this device is the first thing. Like it's like the first of its kind, but then Andrews has mentioned in the past that it's been looking for a new host. Or did he say a new host or just a host?
I think maybe just a host.
And when he says new host, he may be referring to the giant computer spider thing.
Oh yeah, there's also that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, so maybe in the past it's always transferred to like a new like robotic form to like accommodate
or
the
like
new.
That's the only host it's ever had, and it wants something new.
Oh, so maybe like the core got bigger every time, but then like eventually it's like that's why it's so big. It just all these minds take up so much space, but then maybe having like an actual living subject would make it like condensed because we know like the brain is like has like a lot of like whatever we do know about the brain it can store a lot more information than like a hard drive. So maybe that's where the experimentation comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we can at least say is Marcy's the first organic host of the core. Pretty horrific. Like,
yes,
and the fact they didn't even test in the past, right? Like this, like, no, I'm not gonna put that dark thought out there, but just imagine that went wrong, guys.
I mean, that does leave like, of course, since it's untested, then there's going to be like a loophole that maybe like that Marcy could exploit and get out.
Marcy, yeah,
that's true.
But
like
Marcy escapes at some point, and that like Andreas is like the endgame host or something, or it gets a giant robot body or something as like the final boss.
Yeah, because I was thinking. Yeah, because if Marcy does escape, I'm not sure who else I could like.
He's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure who else I could like. I mean, yeah, besides Andrews, of course. Yeah, I'm not sure who else I could like look around and say, okay, this would be fitting for the replacement. But yeah, I mean, I do buy your theory.
Okay, I think we can wrap up.
Yeah. Oh God, we've been at this for a while.
Yeah, it's not that. I think Anne's Terminator was longer, but I guess.
I wasn't.
So I guess final thoughts for. I think Uzbeks. Final thoughts for both these episodes.
2 very solid episodes. One of the best like action comedy parody episodes the show has done. Really solid. Some nice character bits and parallels and Spider-Sprig. Very good episode. And then, like I said, Olivia and Yunan is one of the top tier episodes in not just season 3, but the whole show. Just great pacing, great character moments, some really great animation and music. We didn't even talk about Marcy's theme at the beginning with this just like gentle, epic, swelling theme, and then when she gets out, it's like a little janky banjo. And I'm sure just the music was great, the animation was great, some real classic shadow work there. Like just one of the best episodes all around, with some truly dark moments and some truly great paths that they can follow wherever it winds up leading.
All right, thank you, Uzbeks. Nick, final thoughts?
Just like Uzbeks said, like 2 fantastic Amphibia episodes right here, which really does just make me happy season 3 its direction right now, and it really does tell me that the crew knows absolutely what they're doing with the story as far as we're going here. I don't even know how to put on my feelings here. Like, I'm just very pleased with these 2 episodes. Like, I went from being amazed by Spider-Sprig to being by having the fear of God put into me by Olivia and Yunan. So just 2 great episodes back to back. So just, I don't know, just hats off to them for this.
All right, thank you, Nick. And yeah, like overall, like my thoughts on these segments, they weren't tonally similar to one another. I think that was for the best. I think whatever segment they put before Yunan and Olivia would have gotten overshadowed by like the events of the end of Yunan and Olivia. So like I'm happy that we got a segment that was like super fun and just like had like the crew just go all out and just go all out with the premise of Sprig being a superhero. And yeah, like Yunan and Olivia, just it was very rewarding to see like a lot of past elements get like addressed and then get an actual answer for some of these elements that we've been speculating about for months. And it kind of led to this like to this very like dark revelation about what the core is, and we don't even know what it wants yet, like fully, but we know that it's all connected somehow, and we're just gonna have to wait to find out how. So yeah, that pretty much concludes this week's recording. Next week we're going to talk about episode 8, which is let me pull up the episode names.
It's Hollywood Hop Pop and If You Give a Frog.
If You Give Frog Cookie. Okay, so it's called Hollywood Hop Pop. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking forward to a hop pop centric episode and a little bit of plot. But with that, I think we can end for tonight. Thanks, guys, for coming on, and say goodbye.
See you guys.
Yeah, bye.